Hi, everyone. Welcome to WWULive, 7 questions to ask your Google Analytics. I'm Meredith Esquivel, Digital Marketing Whaler, and I plan WWULive events. And our host today is Chief Whaler George Weiner. We are Whole Whale. We leverage web data and tech to increase nonprofit impact. We want to help you do more of what matters.
Some of our products are Whole Whale University, which is an online training course for things like how to manage the Google AdWords grants. We also have Snorkel, which is an online RFP generator for tech RFPs that also helps you find tech vendors that, frankly, won't rip you off. And then finally, we have All Good Text, which is a text-based alert based on your data you get every single week of your Google Analytics and also YouTube. Three goals that you want to track and then text it to you directly, so you don't even have to log on to a computer. And if you're a super geek like myself and love getting data constantly over your phone, boom, done. Today, our goals. Look, we want to make sure that you can understand, track what matters inside of Google Analytics, ask the right questions. So we'll be sharing our 7 favorite questions. And then finally, how do we build this into dashboards and really share data internally to drive action? Got to start off with the basics. What is it? Google Analytics. If you're watching this, google.com/analytics is free. It's web analytics for your site. It's JavaScript on every single page of your site because if it's not there, it's not tracked. It takes less than 30 minutes to install. It can be installed on any major content management system or website. Like, don't let somebody say, like, oh, it doesn't work. Yeah, it does. And if it doesn't, I don't believe you. And then finally, Google Analytics shows you the what, where, how, when activities of your site, not so much the why people got there, but there's ways of understanding the direct goals of that. Here is the magical process we like talking through. Gather data, ask the right questions, we're going to analyze it, get some insights, and then I think the most important part, how do we learn and act from these data? And we'll be walking through this example, but first we got to start with gather. How are we gathering this information in a way that makes sense? And in the setup, this is a really great quote that I think focuses, we're lost, but at least we're making great time. And this is exactly what I think about when I hear people report on, look, we had this many page views, this is many sessions we have per month, and that's what we report on. I mean, are they users going to what page of your site? Do you happen to have like a magical unicorn page and that's what, all the traffic is going toward? Or is it a page that matters for the organizational goals? Because not all traffic is created equally. And that's what we have to get into. We have to make sure that we're not just tracking a metric that's easy and over time, which is how we get into the impact chasm, moving toward outcomes. Or to the outcomes, what we wish to impact. And so while we might be doing great work online on the ground, if we don't build this bridge with indicators, with analytics, especially web analytics, we end up with this, hey, we had a whole bunch of page views, but I have no clue if it helps me get over to the outcome, like improving youth literacy in America. Here's a different way of looking at how we get down to the goal, how we get down to what we're trying to measure with the impact marketing funnel. And this is how Whole Whale will always break it down with our clients. We start with aware, interested, engaged, and committed, some version of this, which we adapt to what the client is looking to do in terms of getting committed. So let's say this is a donation. We care about at the top level, how many people are aware, the impressions, the mentions, the web visits, how are we building this audience? Then how do we drive for getting them interested in the organization? How many people do you have the permission to communicate with, right? These are the email signups, maybe social follows. And then at a deeper level, we're looking to engage them, looking for metrics that engage them more. So how many people are clicking through the email opens, the shares, the comments, web forms, that maybe people are signing up for your programs through. And then ultimately, how many people are committed, volunteering, donating? How many people are getting to the bottom of this funnel? And you need to understand your web analytics in the context of this funnel, into the reasons of why we're creating this content, telling our good stories, which you hear tons about, creating our campaigns and these calls to action to finally create giving moments. Because if we're ignorant of how the top of the funnel works and how these metrics work together, it makes it a lot harder to say, all right, why are we measuring? Why are we even asking questions of Google Analytics? Let's just only look at it, once a year. And so this is why we need these good indicators, why we need the quote unquote smart metrics, the specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-bound. Unfortunately, Google Analytics is fantastic at delivering you bunches of numbers. It's looking at the right numbers that are going to get us there. So what do we measure? This is Whole Whale's approach to saying, where do we plot things in terms of importance versus measurability? And you can see we have the easy to measure and the hard to measure, the high importance to the organization and the impact, those outcomes, and then the low importance. So when I'm down here, this is when we're looking at, okay, how many page views did we get? How many general users per month are we getting? I don't know if that's, high value or low value. It's certainly easy to measure because it's the first initial page of metrics that I get when I log into Google Analytics. Over here, this makes me sad. This is more amazing, right? If we're over here in the hard to measure and the low importance, like why are you wasting your time? Where you want to end up here is the happy Facebook photos and pictures and emojis. These are where we want these metrics to end up. We want things that are highly relevant to the outcomes of our organization, but also ideally are easier to measure, so you don't have to break the bank in getting there. So let me make this more practical with a case study. Power Poetry, our largest online teen platform for poetry online to help teens improve their literacy, powerpoetry.org. These are where they sort of plot some of their metrics. And the main one over here is how many poets and poems are being posted on the site and in that sort of relationship to each other. Over on the right, you notice this is much harder to measure. Like, how do we actually tell literacy improvement? That's something that's going to take longitudinal studies, double-blind case studies of our user base versus a control, that type of thing. You can't do that every week, but you can tell how many poets and poems you're getting. You can also tell, and this is on the line, how many sort of content visits or valuable visits to certain types of content. Here's another example from one of our clients, Donate Life America, the largest organ registry in the country. P.S. TV time out. If you have not registered to be an organ donor, technically that's sad because 93% of Americans, give or take, say that they agree with organ donation, as you should, but only 51% have. So literally, of the 66 people that are currently on our on our viewer list, only half of you are registered. So go register. And this is why this metric matters. They can track this online. So organ registry and how many people are actually clicking into that form, this is what they care about. And you know what? Down here, just as an example, it matters less about the sentiment around organ donation, frankly, because they know most people agree with it. It's just a matter of finding and activating around this form that matters. This brings us to goals. And so when we talk about Google Analytics, I'm going to be using the word goal a lot. And I need to make sure we understand this concept because it is the key to winning the game. Notice in this example of home versus guest that the shots on goal, SOG down here, that the shots on goal, technically the guests have 10 shots on goal. But guess what? Shots aren't goals. Goals are goals. And inside of Google Analytics, if we don't set up specific actions such as the ball going in the net, someone signing up for an email, someone making a donation, someone registering on a volunteer form, if we don't set that as a goal, Google can't tell good versus bad. It can just tell traffic coming in and out and going to different pages. So it is critical if we want to watch a reasonable game of soccer to set these goals up. So here's an example coming back to powerpoetry.org. Take a look at this page. How many goals, how many things would you want to track given the fact that you know that? They want to understand how many new poets and how many new poems. Take a look. What kind of things you're looking at? Oh, yeah, look, add a poem. Okay, we do care about that. A little login, maybe a register. Maybe you see this Facebook Connect. Bonus points if you caught all 5 of the potential goals. So anytime we see a certain form on a site, we want to know, all right, are people submitting this form? Now, this is going to be custom basis for different organizations and different reasons, because we could be also talking about types of content. So let's say that there's an informational page about awareness around a disease or a certain bit of maybe awareness around, for example, like aphasia.org. They care about awareness pages there and tracking how much time people spend on them. All of those can be set as goals and need to be so that they can be aggregated. This lives in our admin section. And the goals section will often be showing you screenshots of where you can get access to these things. I want to make sure we understand this at a high level, what we're trying to figure out, or what are users doing. And so if we ran the good old Bravo supermarkets on Myrtle Avenue, if we ran Bravo supermarkets, and this is our website, without Google Analytics, this is basically what we get. We kind of understand cars drive up, people walk in and out, but stuff happens. We kind of know we make money, but that's about it. Once you've installed Google Analytics, once you've installed the code base on every single page of your site, you get all the information about all the aisles and all the little sales and how the people are going to these different aisles and kind of performing inside your organization. But if you want to understand the individual interactions, right, how this happy little ambiguous family is choosing out this melon-looking thing, and they're actually purchasing that exact thing, and here's their shopping cart, you need to be customizing Google Analytics so that it tracks goals. All right. That's like my aggressive public service announcement. I always like to make sure we're also giving time for questions. You know where to ask those in the QA. But we have to be on the same page of saying, all right, if we don't have the goals, it's going to be hard to get the true answer to a lot of the questions that we're going to be asking as we move down our funnel to goal. Now, I'm using the word goal here because this committed, this dollars raised or whatever it may be, this depends on certain goals that you've defined either in the interested or engaged levels, or maybe even, again, if it is a donation, you can actually track when somebody completes the donation form on your site. So what else can Google Analytics track? So if we're getting more advanced and advanced customization, we like to look at Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager allows you to bundle in all of these analytics codes from not only Google Analytics, but other things that we like to set up to make it a lot easier to look at what are called events. Think of these as mini goals that scale a lot better. But then you can track things like outbound referrals, such as if somebody clicks on a link of your site and goes to another site, you can actually track when that happens and on what page that happened. 15-second timer is another good one. The 15-second timer is on, you can put it on certain pages and tell and sort of listen for if a user spent a certain amount of time on the site, which will take care of bounce rates to tell if they spent 15 seconds or 0 seconds on the site. If you want to learn more about how to understand bounce rate, we can actually post that. Meredith, thank you. Post that in our QA section, and our site has got a lot more research and a lot more resources, I should say, around understanding that kind of Google Analytics performance. For goals, we're setting up, things like newsletter signups or donations, the sales funnel levels. You can set up time for amount of time someone spends on the site. So you want to know if someone spent 5 minutes on the site and track that as a goal. Pretty much any click on the site can be measured, but it's important to define why that matters, which is why we go back out to the understanding of what our outcome is and why a certain goal might be predictive of the impact we want to see in the world, such as, again, with power poetry, the more poems young people are creating, the higher chances that we're having an impact and moving the needle on literacy. Okay, moving through, quick pause for any questions that we might be having. Looks like Meredith is slaying it in here with a bunch of questions. Feel free to interrupt me, Meredith, if we have a big one that I haven't covered, but I want to move on to the gather to the asking questions, speaking of questions, and our process. Okay. So in here, we've got,
George?
Meredith. Yeah.
We have a question of, are there general minimum goals you'd advise a beginner to set? So which ones would you prioritize? How many would you start with?
So it's important to note you're given a maximum number of goals that you can set in Google Analytics of 25, and you can't delete them. So you want to be sure what you're setting up, and you don't want to go crazy. I think in the range we like to say maybe of like 3 to 5 goals to start. Google's got a number of like generic ones that you can put in and SMART goals, but we'd rather say look at your site in the way we just showed you, the power poetry example. So to start, a generic one that I think you can get out of the box is set up a 5-minute or a 3-minute goal visit, just so you have one to track. If for nothing else, it's giving you this top level. Was somebody interested enough to spend 3 minutes on our site? And that is helpful, I think, to know. I really am big actually on this newsletter or email sign up because it is that initial handshake, that permission to talk to people that you really want to be driving up. Because guess what? The average life cycle for cycle time, I should say, till donor is 9 to 18 months according to Blackbaud. So that is from the time that someone first gives you their email. There's a value to that if you're messaging them over time, that in 9 to 18 months, they're more likely, depending on your messaging, to be giving you a donation. Obviously, donations, if there are any sort of key sales funnel things, such as, you're getting people to register for, let's say, webinars that are informational. Those are a lot of different goal ideas, but hopefully that gives you a range of how to think about it. That is a good question. I'm glad you gave me the chance to say 25 is the maximum number of goals.
If you host another platform like SoundCloud on your site and you want to measure engagement with that media, is setting up a goal a good way to measure that?
if you're able to embed, so let me just abstract that a little bit. If you're able to embed that type of engagement, if you're able to embed the video or the file on your site and track those clicks, I think that's good. If you're providing information, or maybe there are testimonials or stories from the field, and you want to see how many times people are clicking on that, I love that as an idea for a goal. If it's substantively related to your organization and how you're trying to communicate your mission, how to communicate your programs, or if it is in fact part of your program, that's a great way to do it. You can embed it on your site. A lot of third-party sites do allow for Google Analytics. Some don't. I don't actually know if SoundCloud allows you. I don't believe they do, but people that are, Meredith, you can find the answer to whether or not SoundCloud specifically would let you embed analytics into that platform. But once it's embedded on your site, you get some flexibility on what you can do.
Another question is, if you can't delete a goal and hit the max of 25, can you modify existing goals significantly?
You can modify existing goals significantly. You just have to just be aware that the historical information will just be a different goal. So you want to use something called annotations inside of the history in your goals to set a little annotation, which is just a note in there saying, hey, on this date we changed this in this way. Try to avoid doing that. I prefer pausing the goal and then creating avoiding any legacy confusion. Okay. Good questions. Glad you're asking them.
One more, George, before we
yes.
move on. How can you test if the Google code has been placed on every page on your website?
Oof, boy, that is tough because it's the edge cases are impossible to know. One way of doing it is first off, it's in the code itself and making sure your developer understands how it works. In general, if you toss it into the header file of your code, it's going to end up on every page. So if basically you can look and say like, all right, if it's got a menu, if the page has a menu, it's going to have the Google Analytics code because we tossed it into the header. You can, the common things that we've seen in the past where that's an edge case are the 404 pages. Your not found pages sometimes can be generated a different way. You're going to be able to look in and see all of the pages of your site. So you can kind of get a sense of basically if your site has a certain number of pages, if all of those are more or less after a certain amount of time showing up as unique pages. It's a tough question because you're talking about an edge case that you can't see, and it's usually those like weird pages that you want to find. You can also look at any given page of your site and just see if there is code on it by viewing source and looking for that code. Okay. I think we're good.
One more question, and then we'll move on, and we'll have more time for questions later.
Okay.
When you use two domains or websites, does Google Analytics have a way to track a user when they move between the sites?
So when you have, let's say, two domains, or maybe it's more common with like subdomains. So we've got a donate.nonprofit.org, and we obviously have www.nonprofit.org, and we're bouncing between the two. If you have the same Google Analytics code on one and the other, if you have the same code across that, you can do cross-domain tracking. So remember, cross-domain tracking, we'll post, Meredith will kindly post a link to cross-domain tracking, and we're setting that up. We like to set that up through Google Tag Manager and making sure that we pass that user information back and forth so that we don't lose the source referral data on where that person came from. So yes, there's a way to do that. It can be a little bit more advanced depending on how tricksy the different third-party platform that you have on there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same domain. It can be different domains to set up cross-domain tracking. Okay. Onward and upward, asking questions, which is what we were just doing. So what are people doing on our site, as I was saying before, is a bad question. It's a broad, silly question that is going to leave you these types of insights. Look, people leave on weekends. They return during the week. We have this nice little up and down. They come from major cities because that's where the humans are. We have 4 major sources of traffic because there's like 4 major sources of traffic for any website. They're bouncing from our homepage at a rate between 60 to 80%. Look, these aren't insights that you're going to get. They're not going to be useful in general because it's too broad a question. So key here is asking the right question. We love bringing in the team, but that's why you're on this webinar also, because you get to see some of our favorite questions. So here they are, 7 great questions. Well, I have good here, but I think they're great. 1, is our organic traffic growing year over year? Why, oh, why? Where is our front door, which I'll get into? Which generation likes us on our site? So old, young, who's responding to our site traffic? Are we reaching decision makers? So how do we segment our traffic to understand them better? Are we mobile friends or foes? If you go to the site on a mobile device, are people running and fleeing, or are they actually sticking around? How are our channels working together, meaning our different media channels of email and social and organic traffic? And then where are our donors/goals coming from? We'll use donors as a proxy for goals in general. We want to understand how we got them and how we get more of them. Number one, Q1, how is organic traffic doing year over year using Power Poetry's data? Organic traffic is basically search engine optimization in that world of how do the search engines send us traffic. And for a lot of the sites we deal with, this is the lion's share of where traffic comes from. So it's good to understand the biggest bucket of source referral traffic. Are we growing flat? Are we declining year over year? Month versus month last year is better than looking at month versus last month, because the cyclicality, the seasonality of organic traffic can be very, very significant. So we want to make sure we're looking at apples to apples. And this is where you see over here how I'm showing you in the top right of every single Google Analytics page, you're going to get the date range. And so in this case, we're looking at the month versus month. And you can kind of see, I'm not saying like November versus October, but November versus November last year. And are we up or down off of that? And so in this case, you can see on the left side when we're navigating around, we're going to go to the acquisition side, and this is the overview. And we're getting organic, direct, and paid, but I care about the organic and looking at it, and we're actually year over year for November, we're actually down 4.5%. So this is a bit of a flag that we're actually on a downward trend. In general, Whole Whale likes to recommend, and we keep our clients at least say, set a benchmark. You should be growing by 20% a year. So this is actually like, damn, we need to do something about this. We need to look into it. We need to understand what's going on a bit more. I also like giving the context of the whole pie, especially to, frankly, like executives and board members are like, I never go to our website on a mobile device. And you're like, cool, that's a sample size of one. Here's what the data say. And technically, or not on mobile device, but like on organic, like I never search to get there. 60% are going there. So it's good to put, I like the overall context of volume in here. We'll get to the mobile in a second, and I can rant about that. Actions. What do we do as a result of this? Here's some of the things. You're like, okay, we're down 4.5%. Let's not tear our hair out. Let's understand what's going on. Things we can do. There is something called the Google Search Console, formerly Webmaster Tools, and you connect that to Google Analytics, and you'll get a lot more information, even though there is a ton of not set. You'll get a lot more information about what's going on with regard to the queries, the search queries that were typed in to bring people to your site, and then you can analyze what's been working, what's not been working, and break down. So we can see things like how to write a poetry slam. But then we also see, like, for example, I happen to know a lot about this client because I'm the co-founder of Power Poetry, that we got a lot of Asian spam. So that was actually one of the reasons we've been cutting and reducing the Asian spam coming to our site. And that was part of the organic numbers. So you want to tell the story in context. Big picture, you can also choose to learn more about search engine optimization and content marketing. Meredith, you can post a link maybe to our section, because you realize like, oh my gosh, 60% of our traffic is coming from a source and I don't understand what's going on here, and that's actually driving meaningful engagements on our site. Maybe I should do a little research about it. So these are all types of the actions we can explore. Keywords, once we've set these things up, move through it. Meredith, interrupt me if there's any critical questions, because this is a heady topic. I'm cruising through it, but you get what I'm doing here, right? I'm asking a specific question. How is it doing year over year according to this month? You can also obviously look at the entire year. And then we're trying to figure out what are the actions that I'm going to do as next steps. And you can get a lot more into this content marketing. And we have tons of content on saying, all right, how do we think about building up our traffic with this in mind? Question number 2 that we like to ask, where is our front door? AKA, look, where are the most people landing on our site for their first visit to our site? And guess what? A lot of times when we look, and we can find this in the behavior section, site content, landing pages, a lot of times the assumption is that people go to the homepage first, just as though it were like the store. We're walking down the street, there's our front, beautiful window. We've set it up for Christmas, great blinking lights and whatnot going on. That's obviously where everyone enters and then politely goes through the site. And so we may be looking through at our landing page, the first page of the site that people get to. We may be looking at our list, and it looks like this. We have the slash, which is always your home page. The slash is where it starts at the root directory, and then it goes into these other things. So for powerpoetry.org, it's powerpoetry.org slash, that's the home page. This would be powerpoetry.org slash action slash 7 tips writing rap. Okay, so we then are able to guess, okay, we have our landing page. We know that everyone doesn't go to the site, but what do you think it is in your mind? Do you think it's like 90%, 80%? What do you think the breakdown is going to be of the distribution here? So here are the numbers that actually come in, and you get this like, oh, 100,000, 97,000. So while it is the homepage at the top, please do notice that only 4.6% of people go to the homepage first as their initial thing, which means the other freaking 95% are going to one of these other sub-landing pages that maybe you thought less about. Maybe there's not a call to action. Maybe there's not even a proper greeting as to like what the organization does, because so much of it is potentially coming through organic traffic, and organic traffic is sending to one of these sub-landing pages, or maybe it's being shared more on social. So this is starting us down this track of being like, oh, wait a minute. If the homepage isn't our most popular page for that first landing, how are the other pages performing? How are we greeting all of the people that choose not to go through the homepage first? So as a next step, once we figure this out, we can fix our real front door. I love this, right? We can focus on the site-wide calls to action, right? How we're getting people to give us their email, maybe donate, volunteer, register for programs, and we can build out stronger brand templates that make all pages look great. You can Google front door disease, something that we made up as a concept, and find our conversation about it, although there is, in fact, a door syndrome. I didn't realize that at first. That beats us, but we're number 2 in terms of organic traffic for that concept. Alrighty. Meredith, any questions so far? I see things blinking on the screen. I'm just trusting you to like interrupt me.
Nope, no questions yet.
Perfect. So we're fixing our real front door. We're thinking about it. This is also important when we're going through site redesigns. Sadly, we see most of the design energy and talent spent on the homepage, yet it's ultimately the sub-landing pages, those smaller directory pages that have and carry most of the brand value for new people figuring out, is this site for me? Is this providing valuable information? Okay, question number 3. Which generation likes us? Are we AARP friendly, or maybe not? Inside of Google Analytics, they do sample data that give you age demographic range. Now, this isn't pixel perfect, but it is certainly good enough to draw macro conclusions of your data. So in this example, we have the different age ranges over here, going through 35, 45 to 54, age broken down by sessions, bounce rate, pages per session. So this is behavioral. When I talk about bounce rate, I love this as a behavioral metric because it's the initial litmus test of, did somebody come to one page and immediately leave? And if they're doing that, that means you didn't necessarily have what they were looking for. And so we can use that as a proxy for whether or not they liked you. A better proxy, we can also use average session duration, which is how long on average they're spending with the site. Take a look at our other resources, though, because I have issues with all of these. The best thing to have, though, is goal conversion rate, because that's what you really care about. Are they converting toward the goal? I don't care if you bounce, as long as you convert toward our goal, giving us your email, signing up, becoming a user, whatever it may be. This gives me a much more specific look at my overall goal conversion rate. So the question is, are we AARP friendly? And in this case, hopefully you're able to look at some of these data and realize, and I'll do it a different way when I just look at goal conversion rate, that no, old people do not like us. In fact, once you get out onto that long tail there, if you're over 55, you're really not converting at all, very well at all. But that's fine, because Power Poetry is a teen poetry site. So we expect to see this. We're thrilled. That's awesome. Demographic information, just to make sure you understand, you have to upgrade to universal analytics, a change that happened a couple of years back. Old analytics still works, but you're not going to get this demographic information, the breakdown of the ages we were showing you, the male-female distribution. How to tell if it's in the code? Very simply, if you're running off of the analytics.js library, that's a universal. If you're under the old analytics, it's ga.js library. And anyway, if you've not quite sure, you can always look into generate the code inside of the admin section, and it'll give you the updated code. It's not giving anybody the updated code anymore. But we see a lot of this, especially for older sites that were like set up a while back. And it's too bad because demographics are awesome because they let you do cool things. Any questions here? I saw some stuff blink, but I'll assume we'll keep marching through our questions. Making good progress. Q3 action. What do? Look, we find what's working. We update our GA code to track information. We create and can create a segment of our audience to see what is actually working. And so in this example, let's say we want to see how, the YMCA, the young men are doing on your website. We can type in our thing. We go in, we click age boxes 18 to 24, 25 to 34. We check male. It's giving us a little summary saying, okay, yeah, we have a summary of these kids. And we then save, submit, and we can use it as a segment. And it's kind of like putting on like rose-colored glasses, in this case, young men glasses, to look at all the traffic behavior on our site based on that demographic. That suddenly becomes very useful. You can see where they're coming from regionally. You can see what pages they're going to. You can see what sources of traffic brought them there. And we can answer a lot of great questions from there. But comes back up to, that initial question. The action steps you can see that come from this are great. And it's a good little thread to pull on as long as we're looking for the right answers. Okay, Q4. Question number 4. Are we reaching decision makers? So this is sort of broad and vague. Let's make it specific. What is a decision maker? Well, I talked about before, the National Aphasia Association, aphasia.org, cares a lot about making sure that college-age kids are in fact understanding and using some of the resources around aphasia because you know what? They're taking over the world very, very shortly. So those are some of the decision makers they care about in the educational institutions. We've created a segment here that I just showed you before, kind of those rose-colored glasses. This is looking at network-based traffic to our website. And this is created by going to Audience, Technology, Network, and then running a filter on that network, looking for .edus in the network. So yes, you may be saying to yourself, holy cow, that is so creepy. You can see the network that people are coming from, but you know what? Use it for good. And you can tell then, oh, cool, we had this many sessions from NYU versus Stanford. And what are they doing? Where are they going? You can answer all of those questions. What are the decision makers doing? And guess what? The cool thing is you can do this for governments as well. We've got a whole list of those governments we can share with you and ways of tracking that in terms of a segment. There's ways of creating clever segments that also look at potentially rich users and press and any target demo, more or less, that you can kind of figure out. You can create segments out of those and then look at all of your site traffic and answer these types of questions about what are the decision makers we really care about doing when they get to our site. Are we reaching them? Or is it just like random traffic from, Spain? And you're like, okay, bueno, pero no me gusta lo. Sorry, I just came back from Madrid. That was awesome. I had to drop a little Spanish. Question 5. So question 5, is mobile a friend or a foe? Do mobile sessions perform well? What % of our traffic is mobile? This is the genre of questions that we can be answering. We're gonna find this over in our audience section, moving down to mobile and overview. And then we get a total view of our desktop, mobile, and tablet traffic. And I love this because of the rant I was going on before, is that when you're sitting in the room being like, I never go to websites on mobile. They're so small. I never do that. We don't need to make our site mobile friendly or mobile responsive. I don't go to it. That's a sample size of 1. So you may have a board member. I don't know why I'm picking on board members, but I am. But you can deliver a pretty little pie chart that says, actually, mobile's 43% of all of our traffic and growing because I can show you this trend curve and put it in context for people. And then not only that, we can come back to our behavioral metrics saying, hey, our bounce rate on mobile in this case is far above desktop. Our pages per session are much lower. And this is kind of normal. We expect to see probably 10 to 15% higher bounce rates on mobile versus desktop just because the nature of the platform is such that, we're there for a quick, satisfying answer to what we're looking for on mobile. And you'll see that also the part I care about the most, goal conversion rates, because that's actually where the business happens. And so this might be an indication if it's a little bit off to take a look at mobile versus desktop and make the case that, you know what, maybe it's not that friendly. Well, what is the action though? Why do we drive into that a little bit more? We can ask a follow-up, question 5 action. We can check anything especially broken. So let's say we are mobile friendly, but we can actually go in to mobile devices, primary dimensions, we can change it to mobile device branding. And then I can tell you the types of phones that we're having trouble with. So actually, Apple is at 44%, okay, but in terms of behavior, 52% bounce rate for Samsung. So maybe there's a particular bug that renders your site poorly or incorrectly for those devices. So you can take that, send it back to your dev team or to whoever's developing your site and say, we actually need to fix on these devices and particularly these pages, maybe be page specific. So you can dive down and say like, okay, it's one thing to be like, oh, our mobile site sucks. Fine. You can get a lot more specific and make actionable decisions on which pages to focus on, and see which phones might be the trigger points rather than like, okay, let me go out there and test 30 different phones. You already have. It's sitting in your data. Go take a look, see if there are things that you can improve, because you can see moving the needle on some of these things can really, really help. Okay, quick pause. Any questions on our little side channel? Okay. Looks like question 6 time. How are our channels working together? In order to answer this question, we need to look at assisted conversions. And the best way to do that is obviously to talk about diamonds. So here's the deal. You will have a hard time finding someone to date at the diamond store. Yet it's where, someone's inevitably going to like get married as the next step. So where you think about a diamond store in the context of the relationship is that assisted conversions are like the first dates. It's like looking at, Match.com and saying like, wait a minute, why would Match.com actually matter in terms of somebody getting married? Don't everybody like end up at the diamond shop for buying a diamond when they're going to get engaged? It's looking at the entire relationship, the many, many dates that go into it, the many, many different channels and touch points that there are in order to get there. And so when I look at assisted conversions, you go to conversions, multi-channel funnels, and assisted conversions to see how these different channels and this different type of inbound source of traffic work together. So in this case, I'm showing you, and I checked off direct, organic search, and social network traffic to show you how they all interact and overlap in order to drive toward a final goal conversion, let's say a marriage. And some, it's all by themselves, but a lot, they are in that process. So maybe we have a Match.com over here, and then there's a diamond. The assisted conversions counts all of these in aggregate. Was somewhere along the line, did this traffic source at somewhere along the line contribute to the eventual wedding? So it tracks all of those on a 90-day rolling window and can be very, very helpful to understand the true value of things like organic search or social network traffic, which tend to be assists, but maybe you miss that value if you're just looking at the last click conversion, kind of like just looking at the diamond store to tell whether or not people getting married at diamond or buying diamonds. Okay, heady topic, but I'll get to how we act on this. Where are our donors coming from? Where are our donors coming from? So we go to goal conversions, go to goal flow, and we can see, in this case, we can see how people are nicely coming from different points and then getting to our general donations. We can see the direct, charitable. These make for nice charts in general. I like this. You can look at goal conversion rates in aggregate. We can see total goal completions. And this views one way of answering this question of saying, okay, I get it. They're coming from multiple sources. We can refine this question, though, coming back to our last one about assisted conversions and look at top conversion paths. So these are top conversion paths of how people in the past 90-day rolling window actually got toward our donation. So in this case, we still have the top level data the same, but we can tell this narrative now that most people are doing some organic search. So if this were power poetry, they'd be saying, all right, how do I write an ode poem? And then they go get some information. And then later they come back on a direct traffic, meaning that like they learned how to write an ode poem on power poetry. And then, a couple weeks later, they come back and be like, hey, what was that website that does that thing? Because I want to post my ode poem because I wrote it. They type in power poetry directly and go to the site. Now, if we ignore the fact that organic search helped there, we totally lose the value of how these channels work together. So in this case, this is direct. Down here, we get referrals. So another site referred them to the site, and then they went back and direct. And you get to see in context how we can then use multi-channel conversion paths and assisted conversions to understand the relationship here. Another way to answer question 7, bonus here. What about donors by location? Because this is another piece. Maybe we have fundraising events or charitable events, dinners that are going on across the country, and then we can see the performance. Don't get caught by the fact that obviously cities perform better, but you can do it as a context and look at, guess what, city by city, and look at the goal conversion rate by city. So it's not just, oh yeah, obviously a bunch of people came because it's a big city. No, we can see how our conversions are doing and the value of those conversions if we set up Google Analytics properly to see why, oh, interestingly enough, we've got very low conversion rate in Boston. Maybe it's because we're not talking with a thick Boston accent in the way we write. That doesn't make sense. But there's something going on why Boston converts lower than, let's say, a Los Angeles. There's tons of insights. Maybe we're doing different things on the ground, different regional exposure. Maybe the person writing the content is from that area. Or maybe we have any manner of things going on that we can then explore because we get goal conversion rate by location of our donors. And I'm saying donors, this could be any type of goal that you're tracking for your organization. I think this is wildly underutilized, just wildly underutilized when it comes to crafting strategy and really diving into finding insights.
George, we have a few questions if you don't mind taking a second.
I don't mind taking a second.
So first, does GA give you all of these graphs, or have you created them with GA data?
GA, Google Analytics, gives you all of these pretty charts. I have used no other third-party software to make what you're seeing here. I've simply done little screenshots and just plopped them in. So you can see, wait a minute, this would make a very nice presentation maybe for a board as I'm answering these questions in this way. And this is the way Whole Whale actually designs a lot of our insight reports when we're looking through. We always start with that question, what are we trying to answer? And this is just literally lift and shift onto a, in this case, Google presentation, and Google generates all of these. And that's why I'm trying to show you, where you can kind of track this down. I love this. This particular view is kind of it's very eye pleasing, though you don't get a lot of information out of it, to be honest, a lot of insights. You're not getting a lot of insights out of this, but you can't show a board. You can't show a board this necessarily. It's very, very, very dry. But yeah, Google Analytics, very powerful in terms of the visualization stuff. We have some more visualization tips coming, though. There's some cool tools.
Can you explain a little more about the circular diagram about assisted conversions? How does it indicate the strength of the relationships?
All the relationships are pretty much equally. You can control the weighted value, right? So we'd like an equal weight conversion just to put everything on the same page, to put them on apples to apples. So you can actually change the weighting, disproportionately weighting last click versus first click conversions. So we'd like an equal weight conversion just to put it more simply. So the assisted conversions, this is just did you have a touch anywhere along the way? And you toss that in and aggregate it all up. And then you have the last click direct conversions. So these are conversions that are not last click conversions. You can really go to town, though, in terms of actually first click should be weighted a little bit more and a little bit less. Just to simplify it in here, we just have it all equally weighted. So if you are a ninja, go in there and just have at it. Keep in mind, if you want to spend a lot of time on manipulating your assisted conversions and the different weighted values and attributions, you should have a lot of traffic involved, and there's a lot of steps. If you're asking that question, though, you might be a ninja, though. So well done. Maybe you can teach me more. This is a complex topic, though. The assisted conversions is pretty fantastic stuff, but it can be why am I looking at this? So I think it's always important to just use good old-fashioned English. I love that, when I was in here describing, this is exactly hypothetically what a user did, though this is an aggregated view of hundreds of thousands of users. But this is hypothetically, they did 2 organic searches and then ended up here. They searched for X and then they searched for Y, and then on Y they bought. Okay. Next here, yes. How is our donation funnel doing? And this is another thing that we look at inside of conversions. And if we've set it up a funnel, so maybe say the goal, coming back to donations, is you know what? We don't have a one-click donate. We actually have first a form, then a secondary form, personal information, and then we have the final donation. This is very important to look at because if you have got an issue, and I would call this an issue, where 1,100 people show up to your page and you lose 89% of them, fix that page. Make it simpler. you could, turn around and be like, oh, we just need to drive more people to our donation page. Look, we're falling behind on this and this. And you don't look at the donation page because you're like, people aren't that lazy. They care about us when they get to the donation page. They're definitely going to do it. You're going to find out that if you hand somebody a form that looks like this and say, don't worry, you care about us, you're not going to donate. Someone looks at this and they're like a goldfish. They got that 3-second memory and attention span. They're like, that's awful. I'll come back later. And they assuage their guilt and they march on. This page follows the fundamental rule that less always gets more with regard to form fields, to just ask what is critical. If you have, at this point of asking for anything that is not critical to conversion, you're losing people. And you might be losing people to a staggering amount. Every extra form field can be technically losing you another 10% of the overall business. It's nuts, right? So we spend all this time on this funnel, and then we have this awful ending at the bottom of your goal conversion funnel, and you're just bleeding users. You're just like, how have you never looked at this? And this is amazing because Whole Whale does like work, for example, like this we did with the National Stroke Association, and we have two different versions. We have A and B. Which of these do you think performed better? Like, okay, there's various things on either side, and it's like a coin toss. Who cares? But when we tested, hopefully you're playing at home right now. When we tested it, we found that the option B won by 25%. And you're like, oh, cool. No, that's crazy. Because what did that do to the entire funnel? It just went like that. It added like 25%. We could have spent 25% more on marketing. We could have wasted 25% more time on driving all this traffic, but we were able to run this A/B test. And you're like, oh, if only we had time to do this. What do you mean if you had time to do this? We just had an improvement by 25%. And we do this kind of stuff also for the National Organ Registry, where we're getting improvements on a form for organs. So you can either work harder at the top of the funnel, but there's also opportunity at the bottom. And this is where Google Analytics comes in. We can layer in some other tools, and we can find these action steps. So a big action step that we see for more advanced users is when you come down to it, how have we designed the type of UX, the type of behavior, the type of ask and action so that we increase conversions? And this is time well spent. 25% to me is like you just got back a quarter of your year in terms of your effort and work on that. You're going to hit all of your targets that much earlier because you spent a little more time A/B testing. We love this stuff though, and you can see I get all fired up about it. Okay, learn and act. Learn and act. So we've made our way. You understand how I'm kind of doing the analysis and how I'm driving the insight so that there's like an action. We're doing a thing as a result of the data. We love making sure that there is action. Using dashboards is super helpful. So you can download the free and actually, as I found out, most popular Whole Whale starter pack on Google Analytics dashboards, and you can go download that at wholewhale.com/Google. And this is inside of new dashboard. You can do import from gallery, and we'll send you the direct link to that. And literally imports all of these dashboards. For example, these right into your dashboard section. So here's dashboards. It's going to toss that into the private section under executive dashboard. And this is how I'm showing you executive dashboard via Whole Whale. And it's these tiny little snapshot windows because there is so much information inside of Google Analytics that sometimes when you show someone like, hey, just log in and find it, it's too much. So we like customizing dashboards with the right information, and we like phrasing in terms of questions. You can kind of get that from what we're doing. And so all of these dashboards frame it in sort of, for example, how do people get to our site rather than the Google version, which is source medium, sessions, and bounce rate. And like, that's not English to someone who's not in the know. We like framing it in this way. And then from here, cool thing is you can click export or even email. So if we click email, we can email it to someone who cares at nonprofit.org. And we can set it up weekly to go on Mondays, active for 6 months. And we can send the executive dashboard to the team. So this is a step of starting to build that feedback loop. You can also use Google Sheets plus the Google Analytics add-on inside of there. So inside add-on, we can add Google Analytics, tie that in. So if you are like literally like sort of Excel or Sheets obsessed and need to manipulate it, you can pull it into your own customized area with whatever metrics that you want. I'm not going to lie, it's a little advanced, but it does offer full flexibility if you find yourself constantly exporting into Excel and then screwing with it. This is a much faster way to set that up. And then this is just an example of Power Poetry. You can get total for all results, and then if you are a Google Sheets ninja, you understand what you're then able to do with these data in terms of generating different graphs and charts. Speaking of graphs and charts, Google Data Studio. This stuff is cool. They just opened up somewhat recently an amazing new tool that allows you to visualize data from a number of different sources, actually. So you can have finally that master dashboard that obviously you've all been waiting for. Well, I've been waiting for. But this pulls in at least Google Analytics very, very cleanly. And it's like, it's basically what I was showing, those dashboards, but you can take it off the platform and really customize the heck out of it. Your max number of widgets is like 13 or something on dashboards. Here, you can get after it. And guess what? Our very talented data analyst, Eve, has created a open source version of this that you can like literally rip it, toss it into your own structure, and play with it, and import your analytics and see what comes out, and make beautiful, beautiful designs. See some questions coming in. Just a quick pause, make sure if there's anything, because we're going quickly, but it's good stuff.
George, is there a way to see backlinks even if people don't click on them? Just to know where they were?
Is there a way to see backlinks, meaning links from other sites to your site? Because I talked about if like someone's on the website and they click to go outbound. To see backlinks, if you remember when I was talking about Google Search Console, formerly Google Webmaster Tools, if you remember that there is a way of actually seeing the total volume of inbound links coming from other third-party sites to your site using, again, that Search Console, if it is set up correctly, because it shows you your website the way the Google bot sees your site. You can also see inside of Google Analytics, sorry, that was like specific to the links in those pages. You can also see in Google Analytics referral traffic. So you can say who's referring traffic to us would be a question, and look at just the referral traffic section. I focused on the organic traffic because it's the biggest slice of the pie, but you can also see the sites that refer traffic to you and also the pages that they land on. So you can see like, oh, is this partner good or bad? Are they driving more conversions than others? It's a good question. That would have been like, that could have been question 8. Maybe it should have been, maybe it should have been 8 questions. Okay, dashboards, they don't solve everything. You know, there's tons of software constantly out there. Microsoft's got something. Tableau is a classic one. Domo is one that I know organizations push into. Spreadsheets might solve everything, but you know, and this is a sort of lesson that Whole Whale learned the hard way, because we really care about making data actionable. We care about something called data culture, where we help everyone we work with make sure that it's not just a product solution like, oh, just turn on these dashboards and everything will be fine. Because guess what? We actually built a tool. We literally built a custom tool for nonprofits to get all of this dashboard information and organize all their information. And then we did this crazy thing. We put analytics on it to see how often people logged in to look at it. And needless to say, we didn't see anybody, and we didn't continue the product because we realized that just setting up a dashboard is passive. It's still not actionable. You need a little bit more of a feedback loop that's sort of like, hey, do I see this on a regular basis? Is it related to my organization? And do I understand why it matters? Am I asking questions? Am I involving my team? And so this is where you can actually have a lot of fun with it. You know, don't keep it in the corner. We think that you have to distribute the expectation of looking at data and finding the answers because there's so much of it, and because it's so related to the organizational impact. And so my story here continues to when we created All Good Text, which actually makes it aggressively simple. So instead of just showing you everything, we created it via text message, SMS, so that you can sign up and you choose 3, no more than 3, key performance indicators or goals from your Google Analytics or YouTube Analytics, and it just texts you. And just because we could, I guess, we have it come with a little bit of snark from as sent from our French bulldog, Turtle, who we may have heard barking before. So the texts come from Turtle's voice, and it analyzes how you're doing and makes fun of you. So hopefully you take action, looking at 1 week versus 1 week prior. By no means is it perfect, but it's a challenge to you to say, look, just because you've set up a dashboard that emails your team doesn't mean they're really going to take action. So you have to build it into the processes and normal functions of your team. So look, in conclusion, it's important to remember that numbers are people too. And this is not just a joke. Literally, this is 3 ways of saying, look, how do we talk about numbers internally? 3 ways of reporting the same thing. There were 315 newsletter signups during the month of September, an average of 10.5 per day. Okay, those are data. In September, 10.5 people per day told us they care about the cause and they want to hear more about our work. Same data, reported a little differently. Finally, during September, 315 people signed up to hear more from us. This should lead to 31 new donors in the next 6 months. All of these things are making it more tangible, delivering knowledge in a way that people can understand instead of a giant spreadsheet that says, hey, this number went up. Nice, but so what? You're always challenged with the nice, but so what? And if you can make the case and try to change the way that we understand how these different key performance indicators matter toward our outcomes, you'll have an easier time because people are people too. And this process depends on you moving through training teams and hopefully creating a little bit more diversity on your team with access, and hopefully everyone has access to the data and the way to learn and act from it. Okay, as wholewhale.com/university, this is where our courses all live. And so because you're watching this, we're giving you a discount. George rocks. Yeah, I know we randomly generated it. It just happened to be that. And this will give you access to a discount for our courses, either on Google AdWords, the grant for nonprofits, which $10,000 a month your nonprofit is eligible for to spend it in terms of paid traffic. We have one on being your own social media guru, which takes a look at Google Analytics, but also on social media analytics and impact hacking, which is sort of our full suite of digital strategies for nonprofits to increase your traffic and impact. Great stuff. Go check it out. Our questions and answers were handled on our live event. All the more reason to check out Whole Whale U Live, where we are always doing different events for you. And so there is a reason to show up in person because it can be awesome. Finally, our Whole Whale resources that you can always find, different things such as the Google resources we talked about today, all of the downloads that you want at thewholewhale.com/Google. We have video trainings, tons of those, wholewhale.com/TV. And finally, our nonprofit podcast, stories of nonprofits in the tech world, hearing how folks like, Greenpeace and Teach for America are using analytics and data to increase their impact. It's good stuff. I am terribly biased because I'm also the host of that. So, grain of salt on that one. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you can join us in person or online at our next webinar, wholewhale.com/wholewhaleulive, WWULive. Thanks.